Okay, everyone, welcome back to our planning meeting, our public meeting. It's 6 o'clock. For those that are joining with us virtually, we welcome you back. For those in person, I would ask you to please ensure your communication devices are either shut off or put on vibrate, please. This meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. Council, I would ask you if you have a pecuniary interest to please declare it at the appropriate time. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted by Strick Balladini on SBM Limited, an agent for Gold Leaf Properties, to amend the town of Plympton-Wyoming's comprehensive zoning bylaw 97, 2003, by changing the zoning of the land from the residential -1 bracket H2 bracket R1 bracket H2 to site-specific residential 3 bracket 8 bracket H bracket 8H zoning to accommodate a proposed townhouse development with a reduced rear yard setback requirement of 7.0 meters, notwithstanding the required setback of 10 meters. The subject property is municipally known as 4386 Confederation Line, town of Plympton, This time, it's my pleasure to introduce those that are joining with us in person. Beginning on my left, I have Councillor Bob Wolbett, John Van Claveren, Deputy Mayor Nettie McEwen, Mr. Adam Sabansky, our CAO, the Clerk Aaron Kawarchuk, Councillor Christian Rodriguez, Councillor Mike Vasey, Councillor Alex Bojan, our Senior Planner Maria Consarasi, Randy Shea, Planner. And back over to my left, running the controls, our planning technician, Mackenzie Baird. So that's Mackenzie, can you confirm that official notice was emailed to the required agencies, posted on site, delivered to neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands on January the 30th, 2025? That would be the ZBA 3 of 2025, notice of the public meeting, and ZBA 3 of 2025 notification of the area map.
Your worship, I can confirm notice was delivered.
Thank you. So for discussion purposes, I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen. Report by Randy Shea, planner, dated February the 14th, 2025, regarding zoning bylaw amendment application 3, 2025, affecting lands known as 4386 Confederation Line, submitted by SBM agent for Gold Leaf Properties Incorporated, be received. Ms. Shea, I believe your floor is yours.
Your worship. So yes, the application seeks to rezone the subject lands to support a townhouse development consisting of there's 12 townhouse single story townhouses, and they each contain 3 to 5 units within them. The lands have previously underwent a consent application in March of 2024, and they also was subject to official plan amendment 53. So official plan amendment 53 was to redesignate the land from restricted agricultural area to residential, and that was a decision based on the Ontario Land Tribunal at the time. Within the residential designation in the town's official plan, it does state that the primary use is in the residential designation is low density development up to 25 units per net residential hectares. And it also does state that medium density developments, including townhouses, may also be permitted up to a maximum density of 38 units per hectare. The proposed development is classified as medium density as it is townhouses, and will consist of 51 residential units with a density of 24 units per residential hectare based on reports provided. It's also important to note that the proposed development will need to go through a site plan application should it move any farther than tonight. And at that time, the site plan application will address things such as buffering, parking, more servicing information than what's been provided, etc. The rezoning will specifically designate the lands to a site-specific residential 3 zone. The site-specific amendment would be to acknowledge the rear yard setback of 7 meters. The required is 10. However, Staff did not see any issue with the 7 meters. There's still adequate room for buffering in the rear, and does make it kind of even throughout the property for the setbacks. And then additionally, there is a holding symbol that will be on the property to ensure that there is orderly development and that it won't be removed until there's an agreement in place with the town, and there's adequate servicing there as well. There was a number of reports submitted with the application, including a functional servicing report. The report, sorry, sorry, I thought someone was saying something. The functional servicing report, there was high-level comments provided from Public Works to the applicants. There will be more comments and requirements at the time of site plan, but at this time it was deemed sufficient for the property, and that their servicing will be available for the proposal. And there was also a traffic impact study that was completed. And it wasn't forecasted that the traffic from this development would have any interference with the current road networks. And therefore, planning staff is recommending approval of the proposed designation. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those for you.
I'm sure we'll get to that report in just a minute. Mackenzie, I believe Jamie Robertson from the agent virtual, is he online with us?
Yes.
Mr. Robertson, welcome. I'm Mayor Atkinson. You have counsel with us as well. Is there anything that you would like to add to that proposal that our planner has just shared with us?
Thank you very much through your worship. I'd just like to thank everybody for their time this evening, and I'd like to thank planning staff for their work on this file. At this point, we've been able to review the planning staff report and the recommendation. We're supportive of the rezoning bylaw that has been put forward, and we hope that you share in the recommendation for approval as put forward by the planning staff. Myself and there is a member from Gold Leaf who is present in the hall today are available to answer any questions to the best of our ability, if you should have any further questions for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Baird, have we received any other correspondence relating to this application?
Through your worship, we have received 2 requests from members of the public to make presentation as reflected on the agenda. We've received no other correspondence related to the application.
Thank you. So council, this is our opportunity. If you have some questions to ask either our planner or Mr. Robertson that's with us this evening virtually, or a representative from Golden Leaf here as well. So I'm going to begin with Deputy Mayor. Any questions from you?
It's taking me by surprise. Yeah, when do we receive the results of studies that this property can be serviced appropriately?
Mr. Mansky?
So it's my understanding that Public Works has reviewed the functional servicing report. Stormwater will be directed through the adjacent municipal drain. The property will be required to retain the stormwater to the pre-development flows, which means they cannot let any more water into that drain than was already going there at any faster rate than is already going. Sanitary, the developer has proposed to raise the site to allow for a gravity feed into the existing sewer to the east on Confederation line. Engineering has confirmed that that is plausible to do so. They also noted that if it is not plausible for them to do so, they would be required to install a pump station on their own lands, which would be a private pump station, which then they would force main into our sewer to operate the site. Drinking water would be serviced off laws. There is a 300 millimeter, or sorry, an 8-inch, 200 millimeter high pressure water main at that location, and they would be required to make a connection to that. And the laws main will typically be modeled for a property of this nature. However, given the high volumes in that area, it's not anticipated that'll be an issue.
So I'm looking at this drawing and I don't understand how, like, anybody knows if you have a building, there's a bigger water flow than if there isn't a building. So I don't see any way here that the flow of drainage
Thank you, Your Worship.
is controlled.
You're correct. The drawing which was on the screen does not show a stormwater management pond. However, the developer is responsible to retain those flows. There is ways to do so without having surface storage. You can oversize the storm sewer so that it holds it underground. You can install French drains that hold the water. There's a number of options that the property owner would have to investigate to hold that stormwater.
It sort of would be nice to see that before we approve anything like that. So like, we're sort of approving this drawing now. And I just don't see anything for drainage, so yeah.
No, I understand. However, I can assure you that Public Works will not be approving the subdivision to move forward into agreement unless adequate stormwater management has been provided.
Ben Clever?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What about services like sidewalks?
So
Sidewalk seems to end at Second Street.
correct. So sidewalks are, you're right, are not currently installed along Confederation line. The Lambton Public Health in their recommendations has suggested that sidewalks be installed. However, councils in the past have not typically required developers to extend sidewalks that long of a distance. They in a number of times have required the developers to install sidewalks along the frontage of their property. And then if there are future plans to connect, the town did connect. It is a sizable distance between this development and the current sidewalks. So it's not something that Public Works would typically endeavor upon until the adjacent lands were to develop, and then sidewalks would be installed. So at this time, I do not believe that Public Works is requesting that a sidewalk be installed.
Is that something we could insist upon? Is that something we?
Insist upon, I would have to investigate further. Request possibly, but I would have to discuss that with the planners and technical staff to see what weight our request would have.
Can I make a comment while we're talking about this rather than wait? But like, doesn't matter what we've done in the past. But this, we learned from the past. We need sidewalks.
I'm only giving the previous history.
Yes. I got
Council
that.
may choose to follow their own path.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that radical suggestion. I love it. Great. I do see this kind of development or housing style is popular in this part of the world, that's for sure. Petrolia, Elvinston, Bedford, they all have this model, and they seem to be a fairly hot ticket. They seem to put them up and they have tenants. So maybe when we hear from our residents, they might present an argument that limits us, but I don't mind the concept. Because there is obviously a housing issue. It seems to fit a certain segment of the population that are looking for good, clean housing. They look good. And they seem to function well also. I was also going to ask the kind of buffering. It mentions buffering in the report. What did that look like? Hi.
For your worship, that would depend on the time of site plan, so it would be fencing, trees, was kind of discussed at the time the application's received. That has been acknowledged to the applicant that buffering will be a requirement.
Okay. I think that's all my questions for now. Okay. Thank you.
Council Wolvett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as always, anytime we build anything around here, one of the most important things is drainage. Seems though we run into problems with drainage almost everywhere we build, and I know we've been trying to resolve a lot of those issues, but it's still a very important item, and if you can't get the drainage, you're in big trouble to start with. So, and I know that the staff knows that very well. We're dealing with not just this development, but others. Sewage, as we discussed in the past, the sewage lines running out there. Obviously, we just discussed that. The affordable rent part of it, seeing that's the part that, like, I'm not even sure the definition of affordable rent. You know, is it $500 a month? It is $1,000 a month. You know, those kind of things we've been pushing for some affordable housing. So I realize tonight, maybe this is not the night to talk about that, but needs to be, somebody's advertising gonna build something that's affordable rent for seniors. That's what it needs to be. So, and you know, there's been a lot of grants available for that type of housing. We just discussed that an hour ago here about some of them grants that we didn't get. So, other than that, I don't have a problem with the concept. Things have moved awful fast out there, a lot faster than I ever thought it would when we discussed this a couple years ago, but here we are. So anyways, we'll wait to see what the public's got to say.
On to that, and we're not.
There was a comment made about affordable rent by, again, the Plympton Public Health. Plympton Public Health is a commenting agency, however, those comments don't necessarily are not founded in planning legislation. They are suggestions to encourage livability in the community. So although those are suggestions, and we definitely encourage the developer to charge rent that would be deemed affordable for our residents, there's little legislative power to force them to do so.
Just one other question. I read somewhere in here, but trying to find it about the zoning that they can go up. How many levels? 4 levels? I realize that's not the proposal here. However, they could be allowed to do that if they change their plan, right?
So I believe you're talking about, when I talk about the development of medium density within the town official plan, it just states, I just put in all the following policies that it discussed there, and it just said the height of the proposed development should not generally exceed 3 stories. These are all single story developments as they're proposed at this time. This is just showing that they are within that policy, and they're meeting that because it is still only the 1 story.
All I have.
Counselor Rodriguez.
Thank you. So these are going to be rentals, I think I heard, that the purpose of building these is for rentals. And, the sidewalks, I, wholeheartedly agree that, this is being promoted as for seniors. And, to have them walk down, you know, it's not in a stable thing, right? We need something safer. I think that's part of when you're promoting it as such, that's part of your responsibility to provide that. Now, even if we couldn't enforce providing it all the way down to a connecting point, we'd have a starting point. That at least the taxpayers aren't paying for and the developer is. And I don't even know if such a thing could be enforced or not. I don't know.
I'd have to discuss it with planning and be part of the negotiations through site plan.
Okay. And the affordability, I agree. I like the concept of having mixed use housing, especially in a settlement area. Now, originally, this property wasn't gonna have like 20 homes on it or something. Originally, when we looked at this property,
So the developer who originally owned lands during the initial rezoning and then severance did have a concept plan with the cul-de-sac. That was only a concept plan. It was never approved.
so it changed hands and now it's a whole new.
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right, so I think it's important to have the mixed use in the sense and then provide for stay in place for our aging population. They don't have to leave their community. But need different type of house to be able to stay. So I think that's fundamentally important. And those transitions of moving from these full houses to these types of settings also frees up housing for younger generations to come in. So I think it's important in that sense that we support that. Affordability, I worry about, so I hope the intention is to try and make that affordable and obviously everything public health is say, making it self-sustainable for them to be there long term. That's it.
Thank you. Counselor Vacy.
Yes, couple things. First off, what's the average street width? 7 meters seems small.
No, 3.5 meter lane is fairly average. Actually, we have approved subdivisions in tighter areas with 3 meter lanes, so 3.5 is substantial.
Because one concern I've got is like 3 parking spots for visitors out of how many households? 50? Which I can see them parking all. I don't know where they're gonna put parking. I also had the stormwater on that's not listed, that where's that gonna go? Seniors walking down Confed, we discussed this back when this whole thing started, was developing from the town out, not skipping over 3 farms to start development. And then worry about how we're gonna get infrastructure there. So it shouldn't cost the town a dime to run a sidewalk out because they've chose to buy that farm and not Swampy's farm. It's, so I don't think it should cost us anything if this goes through. Because Confed to me is barely a rideable road. If you see a kid on a bike out there once in a while, like it's scary as hell. So that I wouldn't, and is this a private, so we would not be doing snow plowing and all that stuff?
That is correct to the best of my
Remain private?
Condominium.
rental, so would not be condominium.
The rear yard setbacks, I don't see why we need that when you look at the middle of the middle 2 rows of townhouses and the distance they've got between them. Why are we pushing the outside so close to the adjacent property lines? Buffers are there for a reason, so. And then with all the infrastructure talk and everything else, by the looks of the drawings, with the 2 roads heading north, if I'm looking at this right, are set for expansion. How does that future expansion affect our traffic control and our sewers and our water and all that kind of stuff? That's all I have. You got all that?
So the future expansion, I believe the lands the north are designated, but they're not zoned, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Randy?
I believe they're designated, but I can check.
So it's future expansion either way would be a long time down the road. And they may theoretically, if the current property owner bought further lands to north, be able to add on to their development. But it wouldn't be a whole new subdivision on the north side connecting through this one. This would always be a parcel onto itself or a parcel expanded as it's a private development. Again, I will do some research and talk to the developer in regards to the sidewalks. As there's an obvious desire on some to have connectivity to our local walking infrastructure in this area.
Counselor?
For now, thank you.
Counselor Bolgen?
Thank you. Yeah, I do have a couple concerns. Again, when I looked up the official plans, I thought it was designated residential to the north of it. And as we've all learned, designated equals zoned. I mean, if it's designated, this council can't do anything about not letting that zoning change happen. So I'm concerned that this gravity system or whatever that new solution is, it just seems like a short-term Band-Aid fix to try to push this one through with no planning for the fact that the rest of it is already designated to be zoned because we can't stop it once it's been designated. We've seen it.
Right through your worship.
Yes.
The rear of the lands is actually restricted agricultural area. This is all the rear. And then this is right there.
The area behind it?
Yeah. Farmland behind it is not designated at this time.
The justification, we already talked about it. The justification for this higher density seems to be tied to senior housing, which we need, but I'm increasingly concerned that this just seems like a buzzword now to try to get developments approved or rezonings changed. I always get concerned that how are these units gonna come with grab bars installed in the bathrooms already? Are the entrances wheelchair accessible? These are the kind of questions I have to, like, how are we ensuring that these are purpose built for intended for senior housing? So I just get concerned that it's a buzzword. That's just a personal opinion. I don't think that the argument for making this higher density works without a sidewalk that connects to the services, because as of right now, it doesn't connect to the existing services. And then my final question would be, is this plan in front of us? Again, I know we're not at a site plan stage, but there is a plan in front of us. Is this assuming that we would accept cash in lieu for parkland? To which my question would be, why would we assume that we're going to take cash in lieu? Because there is no park walkable from as of right now, because there is no sidewalk. So I would be concerned at changing going through this process, and then we're going to say, well, we don't want cash in the park because there's no park. We want a park. And then this whole exercise was useless. So those are just kind of my concerns as of right now.
Thank you, council, for your very good questions. We have a request for presentations for two individuals that have submitted on time for this evening. First of all, I'm going to call Mr. Mike Hinkie for his presentation. Mr. Hinkie, as clerk has advised you, you have a certain time frame in there, and you'll adhere to that.
Always. Well, thank you for this opportunity to better understand the staff report and to help clarify some of the language around it. I do have questions that I will try to keep as short as possible. I am certain that Public Works and this committee and council have already satisfied themselves with answers to most of my questions, and I look forward to seeing those answers, and some of them have already been brought up tonight. I will start by asking by the page number from the staff report that everybody should have already read, and it's in front of them. And as I go to page 2 of this report, 2 of 11, when looking at the calculations of the proposed preliminary not for construction drawing, the zoning data chart, it gives across a gross site area building, landscape, etc. measurements of 21,567 square meters. Well, that's equal to 1.07 hectares times 2. So my understanding is, and I could be corrected now because I heard something a little different, is that it was 25 per net per hectare of units. So right now we're at 51, and yet the proposal is 51, yet it's 25 net. So to achieve that density, I'm not sure how you came up with 51 is allowed in a 50 with a hectare of 1.07 times 2, which is of course 2.5 hectares. So under the page that I read, I thought it was 25 per net. So maybe, you know, I'd like, I guess, an answer from whoever I know I'm looking at. But how did we come up with that calculation? In case I have it wrong.
No, so the calculation is done based on the area and then the units provided. I can do up the calculation and then provide it to you if that's how you would like it, but it's based on are you with your calculator up? Just do the lot area. The calculation. You can continue asking and I'll get back to you with.
Sure. Yeah, I can go on. I just thought you would have had that calculation already out if you're proving or trying to prove a 51 thing unit and you don't know what the square footage is. But anyways, going to page 3, the lands of this development is also zoned R1. And so the biggest question I have is, how does the quote unquote backyard setback affect the lands that could be developed also tomorrow? So you can have a domino effect here on the landowner on how it can be developed or without or more amendments. See their so-called backyard only required 6 meters. And I'm talking about the land to the east, which is the Marsh Farm. So that is zoned R1 already. So eventually, who knows when, John could go out tomorrow and sell that development to somebody else. So what you're setting here is a precedence on this backyard. So if you go to the print that I've also got, that you've also got, I want you to look at that. Tell me where the backyards are. what defines a backyard? Well, if I look at the backyard, I see backyards on the east side, west side, north side, and I also see it in the center. Which somebody already mentioned that, you know, the center had, I'm gonna use feet, 55 feet of distance between those two buildings. So, you know, you're asking for an amendment on the north side because it's a backyard. But, all right, is that a backyard or is the sides the backyards? What is a backyard? I know where I live, my backyard is behind the house. I look out the window. It happens in my place to be north. But a lot of places it could be east, could be west. So I don't know how you determine the backyard on this development that, you know, that it shouldn't be 10 meters. And it should be all the way around, actually. It should not be, there's no such thing as a side. And so what I'm getting at, if Mr. Marsh wants to have John develop that property beside him, you're gonna have what? 6 meters, less the patio, less whatever else, and you're gonna have somebody else that wants to put the same development there. We're not Toronto. I know that we want affordable housing, and I will come back to Bob's statement. This is not affordable housing. This is luxury living. I know, you know, few members from the area that have moved to Petrolia, they're paying $3,000, $3,500. That's not affordable housing.
Why I asked the question.
Yeah.
One day I might want to walk down there and rent it, you know, but anyways, getting back to that original thing. So I don't think council understands what backyard means. Or maybe the planning has, you know, that part of it figured out, but I guess that's up to you, to the council to question the public works and to planning on what a backyard constitutes, what the.
If our planner can answer your question right now, would you be, would that be?
Sure, I'd love to hear the answer if she has it.
So through your worship, because this will be done through the site plan process. The way that we would look at this lot is we would look at it as one whole lot. So we would look at the sides where you're saying like everything is considered their rear yard. So yes, the units, that would technically be their rear yard, but from a planning perspective, we look at those and we use the interior side yard setbacks for the sides, and then the rear yard, which is the back, would have the rear yard setbacks. So that's why they are permitted to have the 6 meters that they have requested here as well. And then just to go back to your other question, I kind of got my numbers in a row, and so they are under their provided 25 units per net residential package. The lot is approximately 2.1 hectares, and so 2.1 hectares, 1.5, 50 would be their max. And also because it is medium density, they are allowed up to 38 units per hectare, so they are under that as well. I just kind of included that number, so council had that in the report.
So we both agree it's 2.15 hectares.
The lot area, correct? Yep.
And so, you know, but you're saying you can actually go up to 38. I suspect that would be if you had a townhouse of 3, 4, whatever that looks like.
These are classified as townhouses, so it can be within this type of dwelling unit as well.
Okay, I'm okay. I mean, you know, that's what thing is, but I just wanted to make sure I had my measurements right. That actually was, you know, 1.07 hectares times 2. And which equals 2.15, obviously, in this development. So I didn't know the 38 came into play on this particular piece of property under the medium zoning that you're asking for, or the company is asking for. So I'm not going to question your knowledge of the rules, so I'll go on with my next point is the backyard. How do you and so your definition of a backyard is you're taking a look at the entrance, and so both sides must be a side and that must be a back.
So under the Planning Act, it does not look at
front.
the building is, it's looking at the parcel.
Yeah,
There's only one parcel here. So when you have one parcel, the front yard is what faces the road, the side yards is at the side of it, and the rear yard is behind. And that's why this is the rear yard. So that's under planning legislation. You can't look at this as multiple houses with multiple properties. This is one property, multiple units, therefore the backyard is the back away from the road. And that's why they presented as it is.
So I guess, to follow up on that, I just want to make sure you understand when you do that. If John wants to put that development beside it and do that together, now you're only going to have what, 20 feet between two different developments? Is that the type of planning that, PW actually wants in the long term? I'm not sure of that, and I'm not sure that you're not bending plans, but I find that a hard explanation, Adam, that you're in a box and this is a side, that's a side, and that's a side. So I agree, they're all sides, but I don't agree. Backyard, when you refer to it as backyard, you don't refer to it as a side yard. It's a backyard.
To move this part along, I would suggest that planning legislation does not necessarily take common sense into consideration. Our planners are following.
Do you have that, can you forward me?
Planners are following planning legislation in this regard, so I would suggest they are doing that correctly. And this question, we should probably move forward on.
I have no problem with that. Can you forward me that legislation?
Discuss it with my planners tomorrow.
Perfect. To go on now to page 4 on the staff report. It says, the development is intended to be senior focused, but as we know, Rent Ontario reviews, you cannot oppose or refuse people at whatever age and whatever is. So the intended to be senior focus is not a true statement. It's a wish thing. It's not. It's nothing other than that. So typically, a family of 20 can move into one of those units, and they'd have to apply to Rent Ontario, not to the town, not to anybody else. Now, I just quickly want to go to the next one, which is symbol H. I kind of get the whole thing of it, but I just wanted to know what the ramifications are. Time to determine when that can be taken off. Is that after they agree to the PW, Public Works agrees to the whole site plan, or when's that part take place when the H is taken off?
Yeah, so through your worship, that is taken off once there's an agreement. It can be requested to be taken off once there is an agreement between the developer and the town in place, and that with everything, there's adequate servicing and everything that we know is possible. So it's when the agreement can be requested.
So since I've never heard of this type of wastewater system, I haven't looked that up yet, but what if that fails?
We'll defer to Public Works.
And so, before, will that designation H stay on there for like a year after to make sure that this is only for the site plan?
So the H would be held until such time that staff have approved the site plan control agreement, and then they can apply to council to remove the H symbol to allow the construction of buildings. You referred to wastewater. What specifically are you referring to?
The groundwater.
So stormwater management?
Stormwater management.
The site plan will not be signed unless the stormwater management meets the town's requirements.
So going back to buffering, this is something that will be determined by what kind of process, Adam?
So buffering is fairly standard for when you have a developing adjacent to a non-similar development. Our standard for buffering is either a boarded fence or trees.
Is this a normal development when there's a farm in between and?
It happens regularly and usually buffering.
Go on to the next page, number 4 and 5 on functional servicing report on the storm management. Question, proposed to install a branch drain. Is that what you're talking about? This branch drain is what you're talking about on site? I didn't understand the branch drain part.
I would have to get further details on that, whether they intend to go. Again, Public Works is unable to be here tonight due to scheduling conflicts. I'm trying to represent the best of my memory. So there's only 2 ways this property could be drained. It could either connect into the existing drain. It may have to have a branch drain that comes off that to connect into it, or it could go through the north to the farmlands and through, which would also require a branch drain. So it's a drainage act process where they get a connection to the existing municipal drain to drain their lands into it.
Okay, so So when you talk about high level comments have been provided by the Works Department, what's an example of a high level comment from Public Works to approve what we don't know in front of us? It just
Again,
had my interest.
representing, I've only got the high level comments myself, but I know there's been discussions on how they plan to grade the property, if they plan to raise it to allow for a gravity feed into the town system. How do they control the runoff to ensure it does not run off onto the adjacent properties? How they tend to build it as such. Stormwater, or is it going to be stored? How is it going to be stored? Drinking water, again, there is approval process to go through Lambton area water supply systems, as this will require direct tap through to their main. They are the approval authority on that. So those are the kind of comments provided, that where we need further information, where we need further refinement of the proposal to ensure that it does not adversely affect our infrastructure and to ensure our infrastructure can accept it.
What's the last time we, I think you call it the Superior, I'm not sure it was ever called Superior Drain, that runs in front to empty out the north side of First Street, Second Street and stuff like that. It's probably 30 plus or minus years old. And it's only, I thought it was only a 15 inch. You're saying it's a 600 millimeter, which is, 23 inches. But when's the last time you ever scoped that? It's 30 years old. And who determines what you're asking for this developer to go into that drain? I know you're saying hold it back, but do we know the status of that drain?
I'd have to talk to my drainage superintendent for further detail on that.
So we don't.
That being said, it is a municipal drain. Municipal drains are not, town does not do proactive maintenance on municipal drains. Municipal drains are a user integrated system. So maintenance on a municipal drain is typically triggered by those property owners who flow into it. And then our drainage superintendent would investigate, determine what maintenance is required before carrying it out. And typically that includes a meeting with the public to do so.
As Public Works or whatever taken in consideration, there's the land that is R1 and to the east of this property could be developed. John could develop and put another 400 houses in there. He'd be happy. He'd be retired. So how does that affect the drain also? If we always talk about looking generational on doing things in Wyoming, not redoing it, as I think Councillor Bob has said, what type of consideration have you given to the R1 designation beside this property?
So municipal drains are typically on a first come first served basis because they're user initiated, user pay system. So we don't typically oversize the drains for adjacent properties. That being said, if this property results in a Drainage Act application to improve the drain to allow it to drain, the adjacent property owners are notified. If the adjacent farm is interested in developing, then that would be their opportunity to put a petition in to oversize the drain at that time to allow for easy access in the future. It's not, they don't have to, they can find other routes through the Drainage Act to that drain. It would just be more cost effective to do it at the time through the Drainage Act.
Okay.
So that is available to the adjacent property owners if they so wish.
Okay. Well, just when I look at the area that they're proposing, the building area is somewhere around what, 12,809 square meters. Basically all they have is 40% that would be allowable for groundwater seepage. The rest, the 60% of the rain that falls on that 1 inch of rain that falls on that particular parcel will have to be contained. Do we know what how many gallons that is? You want to take a guess? Okay, I won't put you on the spot. It's a lot.
Assume so.
I would say in the millions. So I just want you to be aware, or council to be aware, that, there's something here to be said about, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love this type of development. I think it's needed, but at the same time, we need to do it properly. And if he needs to, buy extra land to accommodate what he's trying to do, this is not a small thing. This company, Go Leaf, is a $500 million company plus. Van Bree is probably another half. I mean, we're not talking somebody down the road that is putting up something good. This is something that he's doing as an investment. It's a money-making thing. It's not a losing proposition. We need to get these kind of things right in Plympton, Wyoming, or else we're just gonna have cascading effects, especially when you're allowing settlement outside the town to begin with, when you have a farm in between. But we've gone through that. We can't change that designation, so I'm pretty much done, other than I just wanted to say in the Lambton Public Health, I'm not sure where they got this was affordable housing, but it's luxury. But you know, the sidewalks are I would never ride my bicycle down Confed. And matter of fact, in front of Mr. Marsh's farm, the road homes right there. And if you have a 9-foot cultivator and a truck coming the other way, you can't get both through there. And this isn't, you know, this is something that needs to be seen. So the only other comment I've got to make is, holy cow, you know, I read the Canada Post thing. I don't know if anybody else has. I was, you know, certainly they regard safety to their clients, to the people. I just hope council does the same view and considering sidewalks, lighting. You haven't talked about fire hydrants. You haven't talked about any of those. There's nothing out there yet. I've lived there 44 years. So as this is the first of our development, we need to get it right today and for the next 50 years. It's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that all the I's and T's are crossed, because there's no way that you're going to change anything after it's up and done. We haven't got the resources, and we certainly don't have the money to go up against gold leaf development. I just want to make one more comment. If anybody remembers this management thing on the zoning bylaw that shows the old chicken barn, well, I call it a chicken barn, but you used to have chickens, that is right up against the property line. It's still there. And so we're still talking about that backyard thing. I forgot to bring that up earlier, but I apologize for that. But has everybody got that in front of them? Everybody knows and has seen that? Adam? Has council been forwarded with that information?
Planning would have reviewed the adjacent buildings, I would presume.
It will show it on the print, because of course it's a band-free print, or sorry. And of course, it's a preliminary not for construction. I want you to make sure you understand what preliminary not for construction is. This can change. What you're approving can all change. So, you know, I just want you to have some thought here on what I think it's a good development. But I think it needs to be refined. And I think you need to think about some of the things that the council people have brought up themselves. And I'm sure other people here will bring up beside myself, but I'm still stuck on that backyard. I don't know if I'd want to live 3 feet from a fence, 4 feet from a fence. By the time you put the patio, a little overhang, you're back. I mean, and I realize that, you know, I'm only in my early 70s, but I don't think I'd want to live with 3 feet of grass and behind me. But anyways, thank you for allowing me the time.
You, Mr. Hanky. Get your contribution. Next I have Mr. Marsh, Mr. Brian Marsh.
Yes, well, I got the farm east of the property, and my main concern is tile drain. Or in the field. What happens? They start digging, they hit a tile drain. Are they gonna fix it? Are they responsible, or am I gonna have to babysit them every day and say, hey, because I've had that happen before. It's not fun. So it's just, are they gonna be okay?
Good question.
That'll be a discussion you'll want to have with Gold Leaf. Unless you have a formal agreement, either through the Drainage Act or a private agreement with that owner. We can't enforce previous deals between private property owners in regards to tile drainage. So that if you have farm dirt tiles that run through there, that's a conversation you want to have with.
Well, hopefully he'll come forward and approach me too. Listening?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Mr. Mooster, I understand you submitted a request to speak, and I'm sorry I didn't have that listed, but I do know that you did. So you.
Yeah, we had similar concerns to what was already stated. The drainage issues, things like that. We know that there's been subdivisions in town here that have been approved and there are drainage issues for the neighbors. So we want to make sure that we're not going to end up on the short end of the stick on that. So and then one other thing that caught our attention, and I don't know if it's something that needs to be dealt with now or if it's an issue or not, but under this the property that is listed here is the same property as ours, the property number. So
Address.
4386 Confederation line is our 911 number at our driveway. So we just want to make sure that we're not going to get caught in the crossfires here or, you know, problems down the road.
I'm pretty sure that'll be rectified once.
Yeah, the addresses is the address that was provided in the application, but the legal section 5 East Part Lot 4 is the correct address that's been provided as well.
Can't even get the address right.
The applicant.
Okay.
Wow.
Will that be straightened out soon so that we don't have problems? We're building there, obviously, and you know, we've got our own project on the go. We don't want bulldozers pulling up down our driveway.
I'm pretty sure that'll be straightened.
Safety issue too.
Yeah, that we have, and that was part of the thing too. We have had their surveyors and we've had to explain them. I've seen them on the camera. I've gone out there and explained to them that this isn't their property. Like I've allowed them the access that they've needed, but there's been some miscommunications and some confusion there. So I would suggest contact the developer. I would suggest that we would contact the developer. They should probably apply to the county of Plympton to get a 911 address properly assigned to it based on their proposed location of their laneway. And we'll make sure that gets done sooner rather than later, so there's less confusion. Okay.
Just that all the reports were actually accurately done on their parcel of land, not taking into consideration ours, which is not saying more green space. Or divide in between the setback. If these drainage plans, if they plan on doing it in between, is there gonna be room for all this drainage and a increased setback and buffering? And we brought up noise complaint, noise, pollution, light pollution. If there's say needs to be an 8-foot fence and trees and swales or ditches or whatever, and they're decreasing the setback, how are they gonna jam that all in there? And our driveway is right there. Like, how are we supposed to drive down our laneway?
You done?
No.
It's a few more things.
Good.
I may, could you just repeat what your last name is, please?
Moesker, Moesker.
So the first was the incorrect use of address and errors on official reports, and that we request that it be corrected, and evaluated. To avoid any misinformed approvals and service allocation errors, as if people got those letters, it was actually, they would probably think it was our property, not the one adjacent to us. Once again, the reduced rear yard setback and the medium density development, changing that from 10 to 7. Just that it is the medium density beside a single dwelling family, and that this reduction will significantly impact our privacy, our noise and light pollution. Currently our house is built right here and we have windows into our house, and there'll be 12 people's patio doors and windows looking right into our family's home with 3 little children. Kind of really concerned about privacy there. I also don't really want to drive down my driveway every day and have to wait to 12 people and think I need to get into the garage right away. And also the stormwater drainage and flooding risks. Like we said, this is supposed to be taken into account, but what if it doesn't work and our basement is full of water? Then what do we do? As it has happened in other homes in the town with recent developments that we've heard of, with the development setback going back and our property and our driveway being really close to that. What happens if there is water runoff, flooding and erosion affecting our home, our driveway and our yard? Also just requesting a detailed drainage and stormwater management plan, ensuring that our house won't be flooded. As well, maybe that drainage ditches be put behind the property instead of in front or beside to help with that. Once again, the proximity to our existing drive wall and if there was any retaining walls and the distance, safe vehicle movement access, structural risks from soil sifting and water runoff, and potential property damage during construction to our property and our driveway. And as well, even if there is a retaining wall, well, how do we remove our snow when it's literally like a foot away? Kind of requesting that there's a grading plan that accounts for all of these things, including safe access and stormwater management. Some of these things are about the actual development itself. It's a really great idea and plan. My mother actually lives in a retirement village like this, not in Plympton-Wyoming. And the houses were made to make sure that they had bigger like room accesses, the showers were large, there was handles, there's no steps getting into the house in a wheelchair you could roll in. So I know that these types of places can be made with those accommodations. However, taking that also into effect with 51 units and only 6 visitor parking spaces, having working in healthcare myself, most likely there are gonna be quite a few of those residents that are gonna have home care workers and other visitors needing way more than 6 parking spaces. And you're also not allowed to park on the road in the development. So are all these home care workers and nurses going to be parking along Confed with their little wheelie bags full of bandages to go in to help their patients?
Before we get too far down the list, a lot of those concerns we'll be looking at through development, through the development agreement. Ensure that they are not adversely affecting the adjacent properties. The parking one has come up a few times, so if I could get planning to talk about the legislated minimum parking requirements for this property.
Yeah, through your worship, each unit will require, I believe it's 1.5 units. And based on their planning justification report they provided, that each unit does get, I believe it's in my report, but 3 parking spaces per unit is what I remember. I will double check that for you. So along with the 6 visitor parkings, there's also 3 units, 3 spaces per unit, was my understanding.
5 people in a unit?
So no, it's there's 12 townhouses, but in that it would be 3 to 5 units. So my understanding is that each unit will at least have 1.5 parking spaces per, along with the visitor parking. That is the minimum requirement.
Happens at Christmas time when everybody's visiting.
Easter.
Unfortunately, us asking for more parking legislatively, we're given power to do so can be challenging.
Yeah. Another concern, it looks like it's one way in and out, and just also thinking if there is ever any like emergency response, how do you get the fire trucks and the ambulances and everything all in there as long as like fire?
And that's a valid concern. However, I know the Ontario Fire Code stipulates that you're allowed up to 100 units with 1 access.
Okay.
And through your worship as well. So in regards to the address, just looking it up. So the address is based the 4386 Confederation line. So that's based on all the everything that was submitted from the applicant and their consultant. But they do have their legal here, which is concession 5 East Part Lot 4 of Town of Plympton-Wyoming, County of Lambton. So that is what's in the bylaw. So as long as that is the legal address, that I think someone from Goldleaf here could.
It's just concession 3. I've lived there for 44 years.
Yeah.
I live at concession 3, lot 14. So where you're getting concession 5, I don't know.
These lots would be severed. Again, this is
I think
based
we're
on.
talking about a different property.
The legal description of the property will be correct. The 911 address of the property will be updated by the developer in the near future. I don't think that's something we need to stress about at this point. Those are things that will be correct. If they're not correct as they're presented to you today, they will be correct in the or the bylaw.
So
Yeah, the next part is just, and I think this will be then when the site plan, just that the when determining the buffers that it take into account and not negatively affect us in terms of higher noise levels and the windows facing our property for privacy and the light pollution as well. So
You have some very valid points there, Ms. Minister.
put a lot of thought into it.
Anything else that you add on to that?
No, I think that covers our concerns at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so not yet, Mike, not yet.
Give me the look.
I have the Next, is there any further comments from council or members of the public? And I understand we have somebody from Gold Leaf with us as well. So I'm going to go with Gold Leaf first. I think you've heard some concerns. Would you like anything that you'd like to add at this time before we move along, or?
I would have a couple more comments.
You will get your time.
Okay, then
Thank you.
I'll make those comments after Gold Leaf.
Thank you, Mr. Hankey.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Here's Judy.
She's got a halo.
So from Gold Leaf, would you like to, is there anything that you'd like to share with us at this time that you'd like to consideration or?
Here I am. Maybe if we want to let Jamie from SBM maybe address first, and then I can talk after that if that's okay.
Sure. Mackenzie, can you bring Jamie back in? Okay, Jamie, floor is yours. Do you have some comments?
Yeah, thank you again through you, your worship. So many of the points that have been made, I just want to help clarify some of those things. Yes, through the Planning Act, the rear yard is the opposite of the street frontage. So the requested 7-meter reduction to 7 meters is only for that rear line. To the two sides, the 6 meters that are proposed exceed the minimum requirement. So those ones are not being sought for a reduction, just to make sure that there's a clarity there. We're exceeding what we could be put at. We're not requesting a reduction on those sides. For parking, it is 3 spaces being provided for each unit. There are 2 driveway spaces because they provide wider driveways, and there's a space in an attached garage. So each unit is provided with 3 parking spaces immediately, which doubles the requirement. And then we have the 6 visitor parking spaces as extra parking spaces throughout the site. For fire truck movement, we have on that design a crosshatch within the road. The minimum width requirement for fire trucks is 6 meters, which is provided throughout the entire site. You need center line turning radius of 12 meters for every corner, which again is provided throughout the site. And the access to the street to Confederation line would also have that same requirement. And the curb radius that is proposed right now provides for a fire truck to be able to access and get on and off site, including garbage trucks as well. They generally have a requirement which is less. The 2 connections to the north are not proposed to be extended in the future. Certainly if the client were to purchase more lands there, that could be looked at. Currently, it's to provide access for the existing driveways, and the garbage collection requires a significant extension beyond the front of their trucks for collection. So that's why it looks like it goes a little bit further than most would kind of anticipate in that particular design. Most of the other servicing items, totally agreed. Stormwater has to be managed properly. That is always to be finalized, signed off by the municipality. We have our engineering team starting to work on that. Those all come at detailed design, which is during the site plan approval stage. To do it during the zoning stage is a little bit early, which is why we do the initial analysis, the servicing feasibility, where we look at some initial data and look at some initial site design and ensure that we know we can provide adequate stormwater. We'll just have to detail design with the municipality review at the later stage. So we do understand all of that, and we do not certainly want to cause any negative effects, especially with stormwater on adjacent properties. So we will be sure through the engineering process to make sure that that happens to the best of our engineering stamps ability. I believe that covers most of the points, but if there are any other questions specifically, certainly I'll answer them as best I can.
Now, Mr. Robertson, I have a couple right off the bat. Like you're talking for fire protection, are you looking at some hydrants within the complex itself?
Correct. So again, that gets done at the detailed design, specifically to meet all of the OBC requirements. But certainly fire hydrants will be placed on site for this development. And
the Mooskers have brought up a very good point as far as the privacy along that west side there. Is there, because I know this will be consideration moving forward, but I think it's a very important aspect to have the good neighbor aspect involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we already start off with this only being one story. We alleviate that very common second story that kind of has that height that already looks over privacy, any kind of privacy features that you put into place. So certainly landscaping and privacy fencing is all yet to be sorted out with the municipal staff at the next stage. But we do know that it's part of the requirements and we'll be looking in to provide sufficient buffering in that regard. But we do have a little bit better on our side for it being one story. It helps a little bit with your regular privacy buffering. That's even more adequate with just a one story than a two story.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go to the Gold Leaf representative, and I do apologize. I do know your name, but I have forgotten it.
It's Cindy Reed from Golden. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Is there anything that you would like to add to that before I go to questions from council and further from the public?
Yeah, I think I just want to, come up here. I think I just kind of want to put to bed some of the concerns about this actually, in fact, being a senior residence. This is what we do. We're currently working on our 7th senior development area, if you will. So we've taken into consideration everything for seniors. They're designed to grow with them. So people that aren't, if they're able-bodied now, that down the road, they're designed so that people can stay in their homes for longer. The doorways are wider. There is grab bars in both of the showers. There's enough space between like the island and the kitchen that they can effectively get around. Most importantly, there's no steps whatsoever, not even from the garage into the unit, not even into the back patio or the front patio. As mentioned, they are double wide driveways. So even if they have visitors over that aren't able-bodied, that they can easily get right into the front door, right on concrete to concrete. So I just want to say that we're not bunking by getting this plan here approved and then gonna pivot to something else. We are, as one of the residents kind of said some things about our company and whatnot. We're a family company. We know the residents that move into these units by name, right? Like my youngest child just had a birthday last week, and out of all of the developments, I think I got at least 20 or 25 of the senior residents reach out. So we're not this big conglomerate of a company. We come in and the thing that's unique about us is that we're coming here, we're building here, and we're staying here. We're not coming in to build this, to sell these off, make a whole bunch of money, and then leave. It's really important for us to get along with the neighbors and work with the neighbors and take into consideration their concerns. And all of the other developments that we're in, we have a really great relationship with the neighbors and have had a really good rapport through building all along, because we're not getting in and we're not getting out, right? So we take really good care of our developments. If you guys are familiar at all with our residents in Petrolia, there's a huge need in Wyoming. We didn't even advertise this, and we had tons of people that reached out to us and said, we heard that you bought the property. Can we go on the list? I must say something that I didn't realize is that there's thinking that Petrolia and Wyoming were so close, thinking that that they were close enough that Petrolia would be a good fit for some people for Wyoming. But no, there is people that have been very, very clear residents of Wyoming that have grown up in Wyoming and have lived their entire lives in Wyoming and wish to stay in Wyoming. So that has been very, very, very clear to us. And like I said, there's a lot of interest in this. So yeah, I just want to say that I apologize about the address. I was completely unaware of that, and you have my personal commitment that first thing tomorrow morning I will apply to have that changed. And I'm sure that in the legal description of that it is proper. And I know that I can speak that there's been several conversations with our development team that it is only in fact our property that's being taken into consideration, and the studies are not based on the recent severing of your property. And to answer your questions about the tiles and whatnot, we will work with you for that, and we'll make sure that we're not causing any damage, and if we do, we'll fix it. We like I said, this isn't our first one that we're doing. Like I said, this is our 7th one, and we have approvals for other properties in other towns, kind of at this stage. So if there's and also to address the affordability, I can say for certain that there is nobody that lives in Petrolia that pays $3,000 or $3,500 a month in rent, and we do try to keep them affordable, taking into consideration the building costs and everything that goes into development. But I can tell you that for Valentina Estates development in Petrolia, there's over 400 people that are on that waiting list to get in there. If there's any other questions, I would be happy to answer.
Sabansky?
So to clarify to council and members of the public, the proper legal concession is concession 3. In the staff report and the documents provided by Gold Leaf, it did reference concession 5. I am unsure if that affects the planning public notice process. However, from a bylaw perspective, the clerk has assured me that that is administrative correction and can be corrected. But I would look to our planners to speak to the planning process to see what effects that has. In the bylaw, the only reference to concession 5 is in the explanatory note. The bylaw itself and the Schedule A to the bylaw, which dictates the area of the rezoning, does properly reference concession 3.
Through your worship, I would be looking towards the applicant to confirm the legal description. Everything that's within my report is based on the information that was provided as part of the application, and on their proposed reference plan, site plan, the legal information does say concession 5 East Part Lot 4. So that is what my report and everything is based off of. So I would be looking for the applicant to confirm that that is the legal address.
Staff, they have to have that set up to be legal before we move forward, does it not? Sabansky?
Well, my clerk.
For your worship, so in the part of any bylaw, it says that the clerk has the ability to administrative corrections.
Okay.
So once it is confirmed, we can confirm in our text system and like the legal description. We'll ensure that it is the correct legal description before you and I sign it, and then we can ensure.
And again, from a planning perspective, the notice that was sent out, it was based on the geographical location of the approval, not the legal description. Therefore, under the Planning Act, proper notice has been provided.
Through your worship, that is correct. However, I would like to address that to our planning technician who prepares the notices and geo-references the addresses, just to confirm.
I think the notices are attached in the agenda. So if you look at the notice of the public meeting, which is attached in council's agenda, you can see that the property, the key map does show the property, which is known to be Gold Leafs. And then if you look at the notice area, which is attached, it does also show Gold Leafs property.
Yes, through your worship, it was based off the geographical location, based off consent B-03/24, which is what originally divided these lots. It was located on part 2 of the reference plan for that, which is 25R11407. The notification area map and the key map in the notice will reflect that, as well as the notice on site was posted on the geographical location of this property. And the notice does not make mention of the legal description, so I don't see any reason why that would impact the notice process at this point.
Thank you. Okay, council, I know we're running late, But what we're gonna do, thank you, Cindy, for those comments. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Council, quickly, any questions? Before we move along, one more question from the public, then we're gonna move this along. Am I right? Did you mean? Councilor Rodriguez?
When, in the site plan, if it's determined that there's more land needed to accommodate wastewater or do something different, that would effectively reduce the number of units at that point. You're not here, I get it, provincially, they're allowed to do a lot more than what's here, but land size congestion, possibly, don't know till we get to see all those things.
I would have to see their stormwater management plan and how that they intend to rectify that. There is mechanisms to deal with stormwater drainage through the drain that are available to them too. It would be a longer process as they'd have to petition in to deal with it in that manner. But they are not solely restricted to the drainage that is set directly before them. There are alternatives if they find that their proposal does not fit within that.
Right. So, but again, if something was needed where it had to take away 1 or 2 units to accommodate, there was no alternatives, whatever. That could happen as plan approval.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. To my left.
No comments at this time.
Mayor, thank you. Just real quick, I think at the last meeting we had on this property in regards to the severance, the pumping station was a requirement, not?
It was at the time, because the developer's proposal at the time would not work to get a gravity sewer to our existing system. Gold Leafs is a different proposal where they are potentially able to build 1-level buildings, so no basements, so you're not heating out of a basement, so you're gaining 8 feet of grade potentially at that point, and they're discussing potentially raising the lands. So they have, it's a different development style, therefore they have more flexibility, and it is conceivable from an engineering perspective that they could gain an upgrade to gravity sewer it out from the development.
Thank you. I may make one little other comment. I do have on here warehouse. Is that something you have access to that shows its information from the registrar's office and MPAC? And it shows me the lot and concession. And it's concession 3, part lot 14, and it mentions Gold Leaf properties.
So staff has its own internal processes to access that, but we do have access to that most up-to-date information,
And
yes.
sometimes the 911 number is delayed in appearing on the property. I've seen
It
that.
is, yes.
I've seen that multiple times over the years. Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Wolvett?
Don't have any more? Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go to the audience. You have one question and one question only. Moosker, anything for you? Or Mrs. Moosker?
I guess just one question with our driveway literally being right there and anything that's gonna need to be built, a retaining wall, I don't know all the terminology, a swale, a berm, a ditch, whatever.
Yeah.
How's that gonna be accommodated?
We'll discuss with you.
And I'd also like to just mention that somebody was out there at one point and told us that they would like to meet us to make our properties work
Joe.
well, Joe Van Bree,
Yeah.
and to set up a date, and my husband made the time to be there and he didn't show up and never called.
Oh,
So
okay.
we were at planning stages at that point and could have made everything work nicely, but he didn't show up, so we can.
So this may not be
What they
as
say.
easy going and as great as they make it out to be. I've heard from other sources that they look out for themselves and nobody else, so just take that into consideration.
Well, I think from what we're hearing, they want to work with you, so let's give them the benefit of the doubt and see what we can come up with.
There's planning processes to ensure that certain things such as water retains on their own property. That is not a flexible one. That is a requirement of this township that we've required. Yes, there has been challenges with other developments with drainage patterns within the town. But the general principle is that properties drain onto themselves. They deal with their own water. They cannot drain onto other properties.
That answer your question. Okay. Marsh, anything from you?
No, I don't have one, so Mike can ask too. No.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Marsh has one comment question.
Yeah.
Really thinking about buffering and good neighbor considerations, it's really hard for the side facing backyards right next to our property. If it's minimum requirements for the buffering. Every time Brian's out, they don't call it making dust for nothing, and we know from the other side, it does create animosity between neighbors, so minimal buffering requirements between the residential and the farm won't make the new neighbors happy, and it'll create conflict.
Spraying too.
So
Chemicals.
in regards to adjacent agricultural lands, any development that this council has approved in the past has always been required to have a warning clause. That warning clause has been required to be distributed to every purchaser of those lands. That warning clause clearly states that you live next to a resident or and next to an agricultural property. That agricultural property will be out and about at the early hours of the morning, late hours of night. They will create noise, they will create dust, they will create other things associated with agricultural operations. So that warning clause will be taken from our subdivision and our condo agreements, and it will be put into the site plan control agreement to ensure that that property owner distributes that warning to the future leasers of the lands.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Marsh?
It just covers your butt, but it doesn't make the reality of living between people who didn't read all of the clauses in there. I mean, it didn't stop the neighbors on the west side from, or Second Street neighbors from draining their chlorinated pools into the farm field, or complaining about the dust Brian creates when he's farming. So that still happens. Or people with small yards seeing the big fields beside them and getting ATVs for their kids, their grandkids, and thinking they can rip up the property beside them. So it might be in the clause, which keeps you from being accountable, but it doesn't make the reality of living beside people different. So I would look to the buffering to be a little bit more significant, knowing that people don't always read the clauses, myself included, when it's thousands of pages you got to get through.
Given those concerns, we'll talk to the developer, but a more solid buffer like a fence may be a better option, but we will sit down with planning and the developer to discuss that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Hankey, your one question.
I just would like to have an explanation of the site plan application process. Because the way I understand it, further input from the taxpayers, or actually even from council, before the final approval takes place, there is none. So all the questions we had tonight and council had, we are relied now on PW's, Adam's team to do what's best for us. Due diligence without having any further comments from the public, from the neighbors that are adjoining this property. So I find that very interesting. I just want to make sure I understand that Adam, that the site plan process, once we're done here tonight, we're done. Like, we don't really have any further questions, answers. You're not held accountable to anybody but your staff and you, and not even council.
To be clear, site plan authority under provincial law was required to be delegated to council, from council to staff. That is a provincial requirement. Council do not have a choice in that matter. The province, they have delegated that authority to myself. I am here hearing everything loud and clear in the community. I cannot promise I will be able to address everything, but I'll make my best effort to address as much as I reasonably can do so. I'm accountable to council. Council's accountable to the public. If I will try to keep council as up to date as I can while maintaining my legislated requirements under site plan. However, the approval is through myself. You're right, after this public session, there is no further public sessions, but we've heard your information. I am sure that council will be definitely interested in the processes moving forward, and they will be kept up to date. Reason. And we will continue to move forward, but we will do so in a manner that attempts to respect the community's wishes as best as we can. We are, you know, in a legislated realm, so we do have a limit to our legislative powers, but we will attempt to address as much of the public's concerns as we can.
Well, I appreciate what you said, but I mean, so far, we're talking about the wrong address tonight. You haven't even got that part right, your staff. And so, you know, I have to question. I just want to make sure that I'm firm on my thing that we're done here, and I don't like that. And I don't like that to council. I'm not addressing Adam, I'm addressing council that you really need to think about this project and all the questions that have come forth tonight. Because this is it. You're approving something that's the wrong address, the wrong concession, and you have no further input at the council. Your only input is to Mr. Adams, so he's your only employee, which I understand. I understand governance really well.
First of all, Mr. Hanky, there was a mistake made on the address, so that will be corrected. Okay, so let's not dwell on that. That'll be taken care of, okay? Yes. Go ahead.
One quick comment is I just wanted to assure you on your statement that we're elected representatives and the public can contact us at any time, regardless of sitting up here going through a process. If you have any concerns, you can reach out to any one of us and we address it through that process. So I don't want you to feel that it's done, over with, and it's all on
I'll
them.
give you a quick example. I said something about the traffic study they done. I was told, well, no, that's private. That's owned by Golden Leaf. You can't look at
That
that.
was part of that conversation. The
Yes.
response was, you're allowed to view it, and we would give you the opportunity to view it. However, because Gold Leaf owns that data, we cannot just hand it to you free willy. We can, if you did went through the FOI request, those documents do become available because they're large documents, they're privately owned. That's the process to get to hand them. The conversation was, though, you're able to view them, you just cannot take them with you at that time.
I'm just gonna finish. I hope you do what's best. And do your due diligence and your judicial thing, because so far, I say there's been a lack of it on the whole thing, but I'm just hoping you're gonna do what's best for everybody. And I have to rely on you. I can't rely on council because they have no further input either.
Everyone knows my phone number and my door is generally open, so.
Thanks, Adam.
Mr. Conservasi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add from planning staff's perspective that we thank everyone for coming out this evening and providing your comments. Without your comments this evening and feedback, we certainly wouldn't be aware of any certain specific information that we wouldn't be privy to unless we lived closer to the proposed development. However, from a professional standpoint, we take your comments very seriously and we will be working very closely with the developer to see how we can reach a mutually agreeable and satisfactory solution to address your concerns. But we have to look out for the public interest, and that is everyone's concerns. But we will, I just want to reassure you from planning staff's perspective that we will take your concerns and issues under consideration and work as closely to ensure that we meet as much as what can be met.
Thank you, Ms. Conservasi. Counselor?
Doesn't the site plan still come back to us though?
Your Worship. Councilor Brooke. It comes back to you under recommended reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we
you
can
will
still ask-
see it
We can still ask questions
once it's approved.
based on that site.
It'll be approved and then sent to you.
You say it'll be approved and then we see it.
Yes, because
Yeah.
the province
So
delegated.
Kind of comments, so we have then, yeah.
This council or the former council did turn down the requirement to delegate site plan authority because they didn't want it. We were forced to by the province, so.
I understand that we get all sorts of stuff shoved down our throat all the time by the province. I had to put that in.
For the record, right now, I'd really prefer council to make this approval, so. I don't take the approval authority that has been delegated to me lightly.
Oh, no, I
So
didn't
I
say
will do
that.
my best to represent council and the public.
I want piece of property.
Okay, council, I've got a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen, that the report by Randy Shea, planner, dated February the 14th, 2025, regarding zoning bylaw amendment application 3/2025, affecting lands known as 4386 Confederation Line to be fixed, submitted by SBM Agent for Gold Leaf Properties Incorporated, be received. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That's for the.
Yankee, you sit down, please.
Sorry, I thought the meeting was over.
Judy. I have a motion by Councillor Wolvette, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that bylaw 3 of 2025 being a bylaw to rezone the subject property from residential 1 bracket R1 bracket H2 zone to a site-specific residential 3 bracket 8 bracket 3 R3 bracket 8 bracket H zone be taken as having been read 3 times and finally passed, and Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. All those in favor?
Is that legal description correct? On there?
There's no legal
There's
description
no-
on that one.
You didn't even mention it on there.
On this one, there is not.
That's just the.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Period. There is an appeal process. The applicant, the registered owner of the land, minister, and a specified person or public body who made verbal presentations at a public meeting or provided written correspondence before a decision was made regarding a bylaw may appeal the council's decision of a zoning bylaw amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days from the date of the notice of the decision the bylaw is given. I have a motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that the public meeting be adjourned. All those in favor? Carried. Council, we're taking a 5-minute personal break, and I ask you to be back in your chair so we can continue with our second public meeting. Welcome back, everyone. For those that were joining with us virtually, we're back live. This is our second public meeting. We'll remind everyone that the meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. Council, I'll remind you, if you have a pecuniary interest, to please declare it at the appropriate time.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Clavin has given me the paperwork, so he's already been.
Thank you, Councillor Van Clavin. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted to Michael Snare on behalf of the owners Jack and Liz Koister to amend the town of Plympton-Wyoming comprehensive zoning bylaw 97, 2003 by changing the zoning of the retained portion of the land from agricultural A1 to the no dwelling agricultural NDA zoning to accommodate a future severance of surplus farm dwelling. The subject property, known municipally as 5249 Egremont Road, the town of Plympton-Wyoming, is undergoing the process of severing a surplus farm dwelling. As part of the surplus farm dwelling process outlined in Part 2, Section 2, subsection 12, bracket E, the town of Plympton-Wyoming official plan, the zoning of the retained parcel of farmland must prohibit the perpetuity of any new residential uses to ensure the retained farmland continues to be used for agricultural purposes. The change to the no dwelling agricultural ND/A zoning meets this requirement. Once again, it's my pleasure to introduce those members that are taking part in this meeting this evening. Beginning on my far left, I have Mackenzie Baird, our planning technician, Councillor Bob Wolbett, Deputy Mayor Nettie McEwen, Mr. Adam Sabansky, our Chief Administrative Officer, Aaron Kawarchuk, our clerk, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Mike Vasey, Councillor Alex Bojan, our Senior Planner, Maria Casarasi, and Randy Shea, our planner. Mr. Mayor, can you confirm that official notice was emailed to the required agencies, posted on the site, delivered to neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands on January the 30th, 2025, would be ZBA 9, 2025, the notice of the public meeting, and the ZBA 9 of 2025, which is the notification for your map.
Your worship, I can confirm notice was sent out on that date.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion by that would be, I need a motion mover for that, please.
Not sure why he signed that. We crossed it out.
Thank you, Council. I have a motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen. At the report by Maria Casarasi, Senior Planner, dated February the 14th, 2025, regarding zoning bylaw amendment application 9, 2025, affecting the lands municipally known as 5249 Egremont Road and a portion of the lands at 622 Blue Heron Road be received. Ms. Casarasi, anything you'd like to add to your report?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to.
All right. So, Mike Snare, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Jack, you're with us this evening. Is there anything that you would like to, either of you would like to add to the report? Mike, would you like to go first?
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Atkinson. What I would like to say is that we've reviewed the staff report. It's very thorough. We would support the recommendation to approve the application and also support the conditions that have been attached to the recommended approval of the application.
Okay, thank you. Jack, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, I don't think so. First.
Okay. Yes, Maria.
Your worship, but there is one thing I would like to add. Currently, at the property 5249 Egremont, that is the primary residence of the applicants. But I wanted council to be aware that they have signed a purchase and sale agreement, which closes at the end of this month on February 28th. And that purchase and sale agreement is for a property that will be their new primary residence. So I just wanted to ensure there's just a few days away from that. But the primary residence will be at this new property that's been purchased, and this property here will be their surplus residence.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Baird, was there any other correspondence received in response to this notice of the proposed amendment?
Your worship, we received no correspondence on this amendment.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions? Mr. Council Bojan, anything from you?
No questions, just thanks for their patience.
Vasey?
No,
Council Rodriguez?
Thank you. Just curious. So 5171, was that previous severance from these lands?
It's the one on the southeast corner of the property. I'm just gonna pull up the GIS mapping, just one moment.
Jack, do you have?
Mayor, can I answer? Can I speak to that? I should maybe, at the last meeting that was brought up, that was simply a property adjustment, not a new lot created there. It used to be 14 acres along the north end of that, and that was just a straight line, and that line got adjusted to go along the river to or the creek, the municipal drain there. And that's where that came from. So it was not a severance.
Okay. So the other question, if I may, was 5202. That still remains on your ordinance, is that correct?
That's still our land? Yes, it is.
So I just see the 3 parcels on the lands. I see one's not there anymore. And now we're gonna surplus one. This is just for the NDA. I get it. Which is good because I can see the agriculture livestock. So that'll protect that actually for MDS purposes. But it was that 5202. I was a little bit confused on that. So what would the rules be on that one? Because it's on a separate lot still. Because you took 3 and made them 2.
That was a different, meeting, I guess, right? Where we took there was 3 pieces of land. We were told that we couldn't sever that 5249 house off without having just under 100 acres left. So we split that piece up, added the first part to above and added the second part below. So now we have 2 parcels instead of 3. That's correct.
I don't know. I remember you talking about this consolidation stuff.
Right, so through your worship, so that was previously dealt with through a severance application that was heard by the committee. So the application before us this evening is just to rezone the retained portion from the piece that's being severed. So it would just change the A1 zoning to the no dwelling agriculture. However, the hazard and woodlot zones will remain as existing. Those will not change zoning.
Thank you. Deputy?
Yeah, are you positive that land was not severed? I thought that it required a severance there. At 5, what is that number? 547.
If it did require severance, it was the policy that we would only enforce the 1 severance per consolidation after its implementation point, that if severance would have occurred beforehand.
Okay, but I think it went through severance, that's all.
It likely did many years ago,
Right.
prior to the policy being in place.
Right.
Council Willett?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It appears to be all in order to me, so I'll be supporting this.
See, we have nobody else from the public here to ask questions, so I will move along. Council, any further questions? Seeing none. Okay, going back to that motion by Councilor Rodriguez and Deputy Mayor McEwen that the report by Maria Conservasi dated February the 14th regarding zoning bylaw amendment 9, application 9 of 2025, affecting the lands municipally known as 5249 Egremont Road, portion of the lands of 6242 Blue Heron Road be received. All those in favor? Carried. All right. I have a motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councilor Wolvett. That bylaw 9 of 2025 being a bylaw to rezone the retained farmland parcel in the agricultural 1A1 zone to no dwelling agricultural NDA with the following conditions be taken as having been read 3 times and finally passed. The mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Number 1, the hazard H and woodlot WD zones remain as they currently exist over the subject lands. Completion of all conditions of consent application E20-/24, including but not limited to the legal confirmation of the merging of a portion properly municipally known as 6242 Blue Heron Road with property municipally known as 5249 Egremont Road. The completion and approval of a consent application to sever approximately 2 acres, 0.8 acres from the property municipally known as 5249 Egremont Road, containing a surplus farm dwelling and detached garage. The no dwelling agricultural ND/A zone on the retained farmland parcel shall revert to the agricultural 1A1 zone if the conditions of both consent applications B20/24 and that of surplus farm dwelling severances are not fulfilled within the legislated time frame, resulting in the lapse of the application approvals. The septic system located be included on the survey plotted on a copy by owner, a copy provided to the county's building services department for the property files. Council, you've heard that motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Once again, the applicant, the registered owner of the land, the minister, and a specified person or public body made verbal presentations at a public meeting or provided written correspondence before a decision was made regarding the bylaw. Appeal the council's decision of a zoning bylaw amendment to Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days, the date of the notice of the decision, the bylaw is given. Council, have a motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen. Seconded by Councilor Wolvett that the public meeting be adjourned. All those in favor? Thank you for your patience tonight, John. Appreciate it.
No charge for the entertainment.
What's that?
No charge for the entertainment.
We'll try and make it more interesting.
Just go back and
Oh, to adjourn.
Sour.
There's still like. Come on.
Okay, so where we're at right now is we've just finished our second public meeting. We're going to be, I have a motion to for us to go in camera. Those that have been with us this evening, thank you very much for being with us. We will be, after coming out of in camera, we'll be going back live to close down for the evening. I have a motion by Councilor Basie, seconded by Councilor Bojan, that council moved to an in-camera meeting of council pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 is amended for the following reasons. Item A, solicitor client privilege, section 239 bracket 2 bracket F, advice subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And item C, solicitor client privilege, section 239, bracket 2, bracket F. Again, advice subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Council, all those in favor?